So, respected teachers, dear friends, and the students and researchers of the college, it's indeed a pleasure and a great honor for me to come to Nirmala College Muvatupuzha and to address you as the valedictory of this seminar on myth, folklore, and history. It is indeed a crucial topic in the present, especially when we are faced with a lot of cultural kind of turbulence. Socio-cultural and political turmoils are happening all around the country. The student community is against this kind of growing intolerance and totalitarian repression from the part of the state. So it is in the context of struggle, whole way of struggle, that we are discussing about myth or folklore and also about history. So most of you may be students of literature and culture, but as we know, we have already moved into the realm of cultural studies from the old paradigm of literary studies. Literary studies have almost come to an end, and cultural studies is the current in thing in the academia, inside and outside the state and also all over the world. The discipline itself, it reached us through the British tradition. Cultural studies has its beginning in the post-war era in Britain, in the works of, as we know, Raymond Williams or Richard Hogarth or E.P. Thompson, Stuart Hall, and other luminaries in the field. So anyway, myth and folklore, these key cultural discourses, are seen as part of the sociality and the larger political processes of the world today. It is not just in literature that we discuss myth and folklore. We are also discussing about the social underpinnings and the politics of the myth and the politics of folklore. What is the politics of folklore? Is there a politics to it? All such serious issues related to the present and the past and future of the society in which we are in. These things are interdependent and related things, and we are already into this kind of a multidisciplinary or a transdisciplinary kind of knowledge endeavor. Research today, especially in the humanities in particular, in the critical humanities, you have the notion of interdisciplinarity or multidisciplinarity, in which you analyze these things together, or you identify the linkages of knowledge with reality, the linkages of knowledge with power, for example. So all these issues are seen and perceived and critiqued in a more broader and more holistic and more multidisciplinary and transdisciplinary way in the humanities, in the academia today. So that is why perhaps we are discussing about history, about mythology, about folklore and various discourses in the people, in the cultural realms of the people, and various subcultures are being discussed. So we need to probe into the politics of myth and folklore, because these things play a very important part in the formation of the collective unconscious of the people. If you use that term from Frederick Jameson and others, the collective political unconscious, the political unconscious of the people is determined and shaped by mythology. Mythology is having a keen influence on the psyche and the mental makeup and the affects and desires and dreams, even the dreams of the people. Even nations are narratives, argues some post-colonial critics like Edward Said, for example. In Culture and Imperialism, Said enlightened us that the power to narrate, that is the foundation of imperialism. He connected the British novel with British imperialism and critiqued the imperial power, imperial discourse that operated through the cultural form of the novel, through Dickens, through Joseph Conrad, for example, the author of Nostromo or Heart of Darkness. He was a Polish man, he was not even a British man. So becoming more English than the English, the post-colonial critics would say, like Ashcroft and Griffiths and Tiffin. In Empire Writes Back, they talk about this, what you call this acculturization of other writers, those who wrote in the British tradition, whether it is T.S. Eliot or Ezra Pound or even this Polish writer Joseph Conrad, they were not originally British. They came to Britain, they traveled to Britain from other parts like Poland or America, and they became British writers. They tried to become more English than the English. So anyway, the power to narrate, as Said has written, the power to narrate and the power to block other narratives from forming, these are central to culture and imperialism, argues Edward Said. So these are very powerful narratives in the society. What you have as mythology, what you have as folklore, various streams of folklore, various strands of folklore, various discursive formations and contexts of folklore, these are all having very accumulative, concrete, consolidated kind of hegemony or power on the human psyche and the collective consciousness of the people. So that is why these things have to be examined. These things, these discourses of mythology or folklore, it needs to be deciphered and critiqued and deconstructed. So very deconstructive, deep critique from the social vantage point, from the ethical vantage point, from the perspective of democracy, for example, the context of multiculturalism. So that kind of critique of these discourses, it is inevitable, especially in the academic field. When you study these things, when you study literature and culture, folklore, mythology, it's always imperative to critique it from the point of view of justice and ethics. So that is the effort that I am trying to do. I am trying to critique these dominant forms of mythology, dominant discourse of folklore, or the established or dominant discourse of official history, especially in the context of Kerala and India, from the vantage of the people as the people at the bottom, the people as the people in the periphery, the people as the subaltern, for example. So the notion of subaltern, as articulated by Antonio Gramsci, the Italian philosopher, who fought fascism and who perished in the prison house of Mussolini, his concepts of hegemony, cultural domination, hegemony, and his concept of the subaltern, the people at large, the people who are subjected to the ruling classes, the domination or the hegemony of the ruling classes, they are called the subaltern by Antonio Gramsci. And in his prison notebooks, he also imagined the subaltern coming to power. The subaltern are subjected to the hegemony and power of the ruling elites, but he dreamed about, Gramsci dreamed about the subaltern coming to power one day. Unfortunately, he perished in that jail, but fortunately his book was published later as prison notebooks, from where we got all these notions. The struggle of the people against this kind of cultural domination. because hegemony is not a direct kind of material or political kind of domination. It is a cultural condition. It is an engendering of the nation. It is a kind of cultural normalization of certain power structures. Even the victims are complicit in it. It's a complicit, consensual rule. It creates a consensus, certain common sense and consensus among the people. So that is why these discourses that I mentioned, the cultural discourses of mythology or the cultural various narratives of folklore or the official history, all these are very important in creating this consensus or general agreement, a complicit kind of agenda, common sense and a common agenda. That is called a consensus, manufacturing consensus. Noam Chomsky and others, Horkheimer and others, they have written about that. Manufacturing the consensus. That is about the political economy of the mass media in the West. But Gramsci was addressing the cultural social history of Italy, especially during the Nazi and the fascist regime proper, during the regime of Mussolini in particular. The rise of the fascists, which again is very much relevant in the present, when you have this kind of intolerance, this kind of otherization, this kind of demonization and other what you call the hate campaigns against the people, against the downtrodden people, against the people in the periphery, against the most excluded and marginalized people, the minorities or the outcasts, the untouchables of the nation today in India. So that is why Antonio Gramsci's concept of hegemony and the role of the intellectual, the notion of the organic intellectual in society, in a society which is marked by fascist kind of intolerance, it is very crucial and very relevant and significant today. So his notion of the intellectual is that the intellectual or organic intellectual is one who stands with the people, one who talks truth to power, as Edward Said has that expression, talking truth to power. You must be able to, an intellectual like Edward Said or Antonio Gramsci, they must be able to talk truth to power. They must be able to uphold truth when it is contested and denied. When truth and justice are denied and erased in a society, you need to teach and talk truth. You need to speak it out. You need to speak against injustice. So you need to stand with those people who are denied justice, those people who are otherized and disenfranchised from the so-called sacred geography of the nation. The nation itself is a narration, argues Said, and even Bhabha has written that, the post-colonial critique, Homi Bhabha has written that book, Nation and Narration. So narratives are very important. It is through narratives that you create an imagination of the nation, and it is through narratives that you otherize your own self, your own people, as aliens or as demons. You demonize. Animalization and demonization, everything is done through narratives, especially through the mythological narratives. That is the cruciality of the myth and the mythology folklore paradigm, because it assumes certain cultural and religious kind of sanctioning in a particular society. As Gramsci has explained, it becomes a cultural consensus. It creates a common sense. In the case of India, it is a kind of dominant religious discourse that has emerged, especially at the wake of colonialism in late 19th century, for example, especially from the Bengal Renaissance in particular, a Hindu-centered or a Brahmanical kind of nationalism emerged. That has given birth to an ultra-jingoistic kind of nationalism in India. Unfortunately, this has become an otherizing nationalism. and it has grown into consolidated later into late 19th and early 20th century as a what you call otherizing nationalism, as a nationalism that has become cultural nationalism proper. It has made use of all the cultural images and symbols and icons from the so-called mythology of a particular dominant religion, and therefore it has become that kind of a Hindu nationalism. So this problem of mythology becoming divisive, mythology becoming religious, mythology becoming otherization, this is at the heart of the cultural dilemma, the political, socio-cultural and political crisis today in India. So we have to deconstruct this long tradition of dominant mythology that has contributed to the formation of this ultra-jingoistic nationalism that has become a militant kind of otherization program, an expulsion of people, and now the calamity. The people themselves have become homeless. The people who are born in India, they have become homeless and they have become exiled in their own homeland. Like Ambedkar had that great statement with Gandhiji, I don't have a homeland, he said. So that kind of a problem, the problem of citizenship, this has come to us because of this long trajectory of this, what you call cultural political consensus in India, which operated along with this, what you call cultural nationalist formations in India, which has its origin in the kind of what you call the chauvinistic, otherizing kind of nationalist uprising in Bengal in particular, in the Bengal Renaissance, that we need to very critically expose that. The myth of the Mahishasura, the myth of the Mlecha, the discourse against the Mlecha. Mlecha is a term in Brahmanism which is used against all the other non-Hindu religions. Mlecha. It was officially used first against the Buddhist. They were called the Mlecha and the Hina and the Shunya, and they were exterminated completely. By the Middle Ages, from the birthplace of Buddhism, it was completely erased. If we study the cultural history of Kerala or India, you will find out. So by otherizing people as Mlecha or outcast, you can create a discourse against them. First, there will be a narrative discourse. The slur will be followed by actual erasure or actual genocide. That has happened in India. So this is how historically Brahmanical religion has otherized the outcasts of the nation, the other religions of the nation, especially the Dalits and the Dalit Bahujans who are having the Buddhist lineage, and also persons belonging to the non-Hindu religion. So now, after the Buddhists are defeated and expelled from India, now it is used against the Muslim. So it is again a divisive policy, step-by-step division, like the graded inequality or the caste system of India, or which is based in the Varnashrama Dharma Vedic project, the Varnashrama Dharma or Chaturvarnyam. Chaturvarnyam divides the society. Chaturvarnyam divides and forces one social section to fight against the other. It nurtures envy. There is no humanity. There is no truth and justice, only envy and caste envy and infighting. That is what Chaturvarnya is all about. It is nothing but the compartmentalization of society and turning one section against the other. That kind of a surveillance regime, a complicit, a consensual rule in which all people are looking at the other and otherizing them, further otherizing them, and trying to defeat or even annihilating the other. So that kind of a xenophobic agenda, that kind of a what you call a casteist and racist project is Chaturvarnya, which is enshrined in the Vedas in particular. It is there in the Purusha Sutta of the Rigveda, the creation story that you will find. It is again a myth, the myth of the Virat Purusha. So all these things, the Smriti, Shruti, Puranas of India, from this Vedic Purusha Sutta to Manusmriti to the Gita, you will find this, and to the Mahabharata, and Mahabharata is the text in which the Gita is placed. Gita is the iconic text which prevents Varna Sangara, which asks Arjuna to kill his dear and near, his own blood. So that kind of a, what you call, the rising and annihilating agenda is at the heart of the mythology of Hinduism, the Brahmanical religion in particular. So unfortunately, because of this jingoistic nationalism, from early stage onwards, people were actually taught and trained in this particular mythology, and the collective consciousness has absorbed this particular what you call xenophobic nationalism that otherwise the part of the self itself. But there is no other. If you look at the real philosophy of India, if you look at the Shramana tradition of India, there is no other. It is what you call the Advayavada of the Buddha, the Anityavada of the Buddha, and the Advayavada, which is also called the Praditya Samutpada. There is no other. It is an understanding of the whole cosmos as one. But unfortunately, in the aristocratic patriarchal tradition, in the Vedic so-called legacy, in the Vedic kind of formation, you have the priestly patriarchy as the ruling elite, and the so-called Vedic and Vedantic texts, for example. Vedic texts in particular, it talks about the other and also the repression of the other by the self, replacement of the other by the self, annihilation of the other by the self. So that is the problem with the mythology of India. The problem is that of this otherization and annihilation agenda, the agenda of violence and exclusion at its heart. It is there from the Purusha Sutta, from the Rigvedic tradition to the Purana tradition. It is there. Puranas are the popular rearticulations and rendering for the common masses. But there also you will find this kind of killing, the caste killing, the caste calling, the Varnashrama Dharma. Even Gandhiji, who fought against the British, even he was unable to challenge and resist this kind of a Chaturmurniya thing. When he came to Kanyakumari temple, he stood there before that Brahman priest. He couldn't go to the sanctorum. In Kerala, Sahodharan Ayyappan has written a poem called Gandhi Message, in which he criticized the experience of Gandhi, the kind of submission that Gandhi has shown to the Chaturvarniya project and Brahmanism, because he was a Vaishya. Like Amit Shah, for example, a Jain Vaishya, he was a Vaishya from Gujarat. And Gandhiji, he submitted to the dictates of that Brahman priest, an illiterate Brahman priest in Kanyakumari temple. So you can read that poem, Gandhi Message, Gandhi Sandesham, to find out the cruciality of the internal imperialism. Gandhi, who shook the foundations of the British Empire, the European Empire, it was here for only 200 years. British imperialism was in India only for 200 years. We have also benefited from that modernity of Europe and the Enlightenment tradition and all those things. But of course, colonialism, I'm not legitimizing colonialism. Colonialism is, or in the origin, it was a basic exploitative thing. Colonialism was a political and economic kind of exploitation. That is true. But because of the internal imperialism in places like India, because of the caste empire that was there in India, because of this Brahmanical patriarchy, which is originally a term from Ambedkar himself, now being popularized by Sharmila Rage and Uma Chakravarti and other major feminists in India, they are making use of that. So they have all written about this thing, Brahmanic patriarchy. So how powerful it is in India, at least from the days of the Vedas, from the Vedic age, perhaps from BC 1000, BC 1500, that is the age of the Vedas, they claim. We don't know, the Indologists and the Orientalists, they are claiming that much antiquity. But anyway, from that age onwards, you have the supremacism of the male priest, Brahmanical priest, that is called the priestocracy, is called patriarchal priestocracy in India, that is called Brahmanic patriarchy. So this is the foundation of power and authority and hegemony in India. The powerful discourse, the centering discourse in India is that of Brahmanic patriarchy, argues scholars like Ambedkar to even D.D. Kosambi, for example. Even a Marxist historian like D.D. Kosambi, he has written volumes about this thing. He has written about myth also. He is the first major Marxist in India to deconstruct mythology. He has looked at all those myths related to Krishna, Krishna and Gita, the codification of the Gita, the socio-economic conditions and material background of the Gita, everything D.D. Kosambi has explained. So in his Indology and Other Essays, a huge volume which is now posthumously published, you will find the critique of the Indian mythology. It is not just Ambedkar who has written about the riddles of Rama and Krishna, who were, when Gandhiji again, when he came in 29, I think, to Kochi in Valedictory, Sahodaran asked him this question about the riddle of Rama and Krishna. Was your Krishna a serial killer? He asked Gandhi. Gandhi never had an answer for that. Gandhi just, he kept mum, that's all. And even when he went to Varkala and met Narayana Guru was trying to explain things to him, the problem of Varnashrama Dharma. Gandhi defended that. He wrote and published that book, Varnashrama Dharma, from his Navjivan press, and he solved it out. But Guru said, look at the diversity of the leaves on that mango tree. I have planted and nurtured that mango tree. Look at that. The leaves are different. So you may argue that difference is part of nature, and each individual, each human being is different and diverse, and you may legitimize the caste system or the Varnashrama Dharma difference. But take the essence of it. Take the leaves and its essence. It is the same. So humanity is the same. The essence, the quintessential thing is humanity. As animalness is the caste of the animal, humanity or humanness is the caste of the human. He tried to explain, but Gandhiji was never that much, he was not that much clear. Even after that, he nurtured that devotion for the Varnashrama Dharma system. Only untouchability must go, he argued, but he upheld the theory of it, that is the Varna theory or the Chaturvarniya Varnashrama Dharma system. So, unfortunately in India, all the mythology, all the myths, the mythos is from, as you know, it is from that Greek word, mythos. And it is used to refer to the narratives, the stories, the tales, the fictional kind of things that you say. So it's all in the narratives, in the Indian narratives, everywhere, in the tales of the Rama or Krishna or Shiva, wherever, in Vaishnavism or Shaivism or Pashupada Shaivism or Shaktaya tradition or all the traditions, you find these elements of hegemony, elements of Brahmanical patriarchy, priestly patriarchy. You will find everywhere. That is why in Gita you have the ultimate question that Gita poses is that of Varna Sangara. How to prevent Varna Sangara. If we die, those men will embrace our women, so there will be Varna Sangara, says Arjuna. That is the cause of his Vishada, his melancholy. So this kind of absurdity you won't find anywhere in the world. And that is why the killers have become the leaders and the gods in India, unfortunately. Those who killed Shambhuga, for example. The one who killed Shambhuga, the one who sniped Bali from behind, the one who killed Ravana, the one who abandoned his own wife, the pregnant wife in the forest. He has become the king and the god. So this kind of a what you call topsy-turvy thing you will find in my talk. So there is no proper history and truthful and just history in India. Instead, the aristocratic religion, the dominant religion, has created a mythology of its own, according to its whims and fancies and its purposes of power, sustaining its imperialism, sustaining the caste empire, which is a lasting empire. As I mentioned earlier, the British Empire was here only for 200 years after the fall of Tipu and the Carnatic Wars until 1947. And we have also benefited the English and education system, the university system, the college system. All these things are legacies of British colonies. We have greatly benefited, especially the people, the women and the Shudra and the Chandala and the Mlecha. They have benefited. The vast majority of people, they are the women of all Varnas and castes. They were equal to Shudra. Because like the Vedic Purusha Sutta that I mentioned, Manusmriti, which was codified towards the end of the BC centuries or towards the beginning of the Common Era, according to Ambedkar and Kosambi and other scholars, or Pramila Thapar has also mentioned that. So according to the Manusmriti, Shudras and women are denied education. Women and Shudras shouldn't go near educational institutions. Chandalas are not even considered as human beings. Shudras are given a kind of menial status as the fourth Varna. It is Ambedkar who has written who were the Shudras, how they became the fourth Varna in the Chaturvarnya system. Ambedkar has written that book in the 1940s. Who are the untouchables? Why they became so? It is because of Brahmanism's grudge against the former Buddhists that they were given untouchability as a punishment. They were broken. They were made into broken men, Dalit men, crushed, broken. So, compared to this lasting hegemony of Varna and caste, the hegemony of British imperialism is of short life. It's a short-lived thing in India, and also these people, those people who were alienated by this caste empire, the lasting empire in India, they have benefited too through English education, through the university system and all these things. We have benefited the values of modernity, liberty, equality and fraternity that reached us through that tradition in modern times. We had it in the beginning, as I told you, in the time of the Buddha, which was the first challenge against Brahmanism and caste, as Gail Orbett herself has written that book, Buddhism challenging Brahmanism and caste. And also in the teachings of the Tirthangara, you have that, the 24 Tirthangaras up to Mahavira, the last one in the Jain tradition. And also in the teachings of Jesus we have it. Love as ethics and love as God, no other God. Love your neighbor. Love yourself. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. So that kind of teaching of Jesus, and also in the teachings of the prophet. That is why even Narayana Guru, he paid homage to these masters of the world in the early 20th century in his words. Anigamba Dashkam, for example, he talks about this Manujagridi Punda Dhammamo Pinne Paramesha Pavitra Putrano Karunavan Nabi Mutta Rattam. These are the key sources of Kerala Renaissance. So anyway, compared to the the long oppressive hegemonic history of Chaturvarnya and caste, the imperialism of Europe was of very negligible kind of effect, and also through that brief spell of imperialism of Europe, we got the modernity of Europe as well. It is having many problems, but compared to the caste barbarism, that is much better. So that is the paradigm in which Ambedkar talks about this liberty, equality and fraternity, and he also pays homage to Buddha, Kabir the Sufi, Kabir, and Phule also, Mahatma Phule and Savitri Bai, who pioneered the education of girls and Dalit girls in particular, who started the schools for Dalit girls in Western Maharashtra in the 19th century, early 19th century. In 1840s, they have started that. So this, the history, the real history that is not taught, unfortunately, in the schools and colleges, the real history of social formation and social transformation in India, the real history of the social reformation process, especially the Phule movement, Jyotiba Phule and Savitribai Phule, who actually paved the groundwork for Ambedkar to come later. Ambedkar pays homage to all these people, Buddha, Kabir and Phule. Narayana Guru also in Kerala, he has acknowledged that modernity of Europe. In 1914, he said it is the British who gave us sannyasam, because if it was in the time of Rama or in Ram Raj, I would have met with the fate of Shambhuga. Shambhuga was a Shudra, so-called Shudra, and he was killed by Rama for learning the art of letters, for learning and teaching it to other kids. He was punished, he was beheaded to protect Varnashrama. So that is why when Madan Mohan Malaviya came to Kottayam in the 1920s for the Hindu Mahamandalam or something, he shouted Jai Shri Ram. Sahodaran and his followers, they said, no, we don't say Jai Shri Ram, because Ram who killed Shambhuga, Ram who sniped Bali, Ram who killed Ravana and numerous others. Now Chandrasekhar Azad Ravan is imprisoned, like Antonio Gramsci. Ravan, Chandrasekhar Ravan is in prison. We need to struggle for that. The students are struggling for that. And even the students are missing. What happened in Jamia and in Aligarh and in JNU, you know. Some students are still missing. We don't know what happened to them. Are they killed? Like Kevin Joseph, for example. Why was Kevin killed? Why was that Adivasi young man Madhu killed? Why did that Rohit Remula, why did he commit suicide? Why did that young boy like Vinayakan in Thrissur, he committed suicide? Because of the caste atrocity. So the caste atrocity, Varnashrama Dharma is still holding sway. It is the most rooted, the most deeply rooted and entrenched form of inequality and violence in this world. So all the mythological things in India, whether you look at Ramayana or Mahabharata or Bhagavata or whatever it is, all the mythological things, especially the Sanskritic and the Hindu mythology, it is full of such killing. Shambhugas are there, Ekalavyas are there, Shurpanakhas are there. You look at Ramayana, you see numerous such instances. You look at Mahabharata, numerous such victims of caste. Adivasi like Madhu, that Egalavya, it reminds us of Egalavya. He was also an Adivasi, a Nishada. His thumb was taken by his Guru, the Brahmanical Guru. He took his thumb, Dronacharya. What happened to Shurpanakha? She was such a beautiful girl from Sri Lanka. And Sri Lanka was demonized because it was a so-called Mlecha country in the Hindu imagination. Because it was a Buddhist country from the time of Ashoka onwards, BC 3rd century onwards, Sri Lanka remained as a Buddhist country. That is why it is demonized, the land of the demon, or Rakshasa, Asura land. Why do you find all these, what you call the chimpanzees and the apes and all those monkeys in South India? In Ramayana, you look at Ramayana, you find the Bali Sugriva and the Hanuman and all those Jambavans and those bears and monsters and demons. It's all South Indian kings who resisted to the project of Varnashram. They are animalized and demonized. So the legacy, the genealogy of demonizing and otherizing and animalizing and slaying them, once you animalize the other, it's very easy to kill them. Annihilation becomes much easy. You make a dog, a mad dog, then a rabid dog, then you kill it. Nobody will ask you questions. It is very easy. So that is why every pogrom, we have witnessed the genocides in 1984. You have works by N.S. Madhavan and others. You have the film Kayatharan by Shashikumar himself about that. We have that even Ovivijan has written that novel Gurusagaram about that anti-Sikh pogrom, the context of the anti-Sikh pogrom in 1984, in which Sajjan Kumar and Jagdish Thakur and others, they got some kind of punishment, but still the main culprits they are evading justice. They are not given the complete sentence. I won't think it will be given by the Supreme Court. Looking at the condition of the country today, what happened to our constitution? Constitution is suspended. That is, by the fascist forces are able to amend it or abrogate it at their whims and fancies. Once the social justice core of the constitution is undone, it is demolished. It's very easy to manipulate it. Ambedkar had warned against this. If I find it being misused, I would be the first one to burn it, he said. It's of course a Borsha document because the consensus was there. Ambedkar was only the chairman of the drafting committee. He fought very bravely against appropriations of the Borsha elitist interest in it, but unfortunately now it is totally eclipsed. It is totally suspended and the justice court is done with. Once you attack the justice in it, there is nothing in it. You can do it for abrogation of Article 370 or the federalism is done. Now the citizenship is in Peru. This is the problem. So the ethical contract that we have to say, that we have to save, we have to struggle to fight it out to save, is that of the Constitution, because that is the only record of justice in the country. It is not this kind of animalizing mythology. It is not this kind of a folklore in which you celebrate primitivism. That is the problem with folklore. I would also try to, time is limited, that is why I would come to folklore also. So the folklore, of course, it is having many dimensions. It can be seen and studied from various ways. But you must realize the ethics and politics of it. There is a politics of folklore because it is the law of the folks. It is the law of the people, folks as people, the people. They are the custodians, they are the improvisationists, they are the the amenders, and they are the parliamentarians in the folklore tradition. It is mostly oral tradition. It is sometimes performance tradition. Visual narratives are also there. But whatever it is, people are at the core of it. The politics of the people, it matters in folklore. Folklore has its greatness because it is coming from the people. That is there. But unfortunately, in places like India and in many parts of the world, again the hegemonic ideologies and hegemonic discourses, formations, the power centers, they try to control and patronize and manipulate folklore. And therefore you will find many doctoring in it, many infiltrations of the hegemonic into the realm of the folklore. That is why even when you look at the folklore traditions of the Dalits or the Adivasis, you will find references to Hindu mythology. You will find references to Rama and Sita, even in the narratives of the tribals in Kerala, for example. You will find that is how they are able to Hinduize places like Chavarimala, for example. It's not exactly Shabarimala as it is written and articulated now. In the ancient Changam literature, for example, it is depicted as Chavarimala. Cha is the consonant, not Sa or Sha. So in earlier colonial writing also, in Samur, Metir and others, they have written it as Sabarimala, S is used, or Chavarimala. Chavari is actually the sambar deer, a particular variety of deer, sambar deer, mlavu എന്ന് വിളിക്കുന്ന mlaviനെയാണ് തമിഴിൽ ചവരിമാൻ എന്നാണ് പറയുന്നത്. You have the reference in Changam literature in Puranur and in Paditrupata and in many Tamil texts you have references to that. Chavariman means sambar deer or mlavu. So the mountain of the sambar deer, that is called Chavarimala. And now, in the last century, it is gradually transformed into Shabarimala. To connect it with Shabari of the epic. And by connecting with Shabari, you can say that Rama also is the Rama came to Shabari and he got that puja from Shabari and he ate that fruit. And all those things. So to connect it with Rama, this kind of appropriations are done. Even in folklore, even in the oral narratives of the Adivasis, these kind of things you will find. This is the unfortunate situation in India. So, like Guruvayur, for example, you take the place names in Kerala or India. It is actually Koravayur. It is mentioned in the classical Sangam texts as Koravayur. Koravai Kooth, that is a particular performance of the Kuravas, one of the ancient settlers of South India, like the Parayas, for example. So Koravai Kooth, that was performed there. So that is called, it was an ancient pot also. Palayur, or the apostle, is believed to have come in AD 4th century. It's nearby. Palayur and Koravayur, these were ancient pots there on the coast of Thrissur district now. So it was actually Koravayur, and they partly Sanskritized the place name as Guru. Koravayur, Guru, changed to Guru. But still the Tamil root is there. Ura is Tamil. Ura means the village, the settlement. Ura is there. But the first part is Sanskritized. Likewise, this is how the hegemonic forces or the hegemonic element in India, the dominant religious element in India, that of Vaishnavism or Shaivism or whatever it is, whatever form it is, it appropriates place names, it appropriates local legends, it appropriates the local myths, and it creates a different elitist kind of narrative. So this is the process of abrogation and appropriation in mythology and folklore in particular that we need to critique. So it's very important to criticize these narratives. Whatever narrative it is, you need to contextualize it, you need to politicize it, you need to historicize it, and you need to problematize it. Then only you will get the reality of it. What was it? How is it changed to this kind of a thing? What is the process of doing this? Look at Shabarimala, for example. It was Shavarimala. And only in 1903, the Tantri family was brought from Andhra. Only in 1903. And afterwards it became a Brahmanical, Tantric kind of Hindu shrine. Before that, the Malayarayas were there. The Chirapanjara Mupinu was there. The Panans and Parayans, all those Dalit Bahujans were there. Muslims were there. That is why the Vavar Swami is there. And even in that copper plate given by the Pandalam kings, Vavar is mentioned as Ayurveda master. Ayurveda Guru Bhudal is mentioned. So that kind of legacies of the people, what is there in folklore, the real folklore as people matters, that must be recovered. That is possible only through a rereading, a very critical rethinking and a just and ethical evaluation of these traditions. Whether it is folklore, whether it is myth, whether it is history, local history and the history of the state or the country, whatever it is, we need to look beyond the common sense. Because the common sense, as I invoked Gramsci, it is a consensus. It is not exactly the ultimate reality. It is only a general consensus created by the ruling elite, the powerful forces in the society. The dominant worldview is reflected as the common sense and the consensus and the general agreement, and it is manufactured, it's cooked up, and therefore we need to very clearly, very thoroughly, very ethically, politically, we have to deconstruct and critically analyze and create greater critiques of these narratives, whether mythology or history or folklore. So with that critical point, to be critical and more critical, to be political and more political, and to be democratic and more democratic, with that invocation, let me conclude here, and I thank the department and also my friends Dr. Sanish and Ms. Sona and all those Dr. Nibu and all those friends and my own former students are here. I thank you all for your patient listening. These are only what you call initial critical remarks by me. I am eager to listen to your own perspectives and your questions and your additions to this debate, which is a very important one in the current political conjuncture in our country today. Thank you very much.